I did mine on the topic multicultural and anti-bias education. In this PowerPoint, I'll kind of go over what each of them mean and how to incorporate them in the classroom. Starting off, what is multicultural education? I found that multicultural education is a teaching method that incorporates the histories, values, beliefs, and perspectives of people from different cultural backgrounds. Some ways this is beneficial is that it can help create a more democratic and just society in the classroom. It helps improve academic achievement. Using this can also include teachers adapting their teaching strategies to meet everybody's needs so they're all successful. And this adds cultural realities into teaching curriculums within schools. So how can one incorporate multicultural education in the classroom? So teachers can provide and promote cultural competence, celebrate global perspectives, and create inclusive classrooms with inclusive learning environments by embracing multicultural education. And some ways they can do this is by including posters, books around the classroom that have all the different type of cultural perspectives to meet everybody's background, and you can put all the different holidays on the calendar in your classroom. There's also a need for social justice and education in order to bring multicultural education into the classroom, and teachers having an understanding of how each one of their students work and process things can help them to be able to lead and understand how to develop strategies and incorporate that perspective into the classroom. Next, I'll be talking about anti-bias education. So anti-bias education is a teaching approach that aims to create a more inclusive and just learning environment for children by addressing bias and discrimination. Anti-bias education includes valuing diversity, developing critical thinking, promoting empathy, creating a safe environment, and things along that line. Those are just a few examples. Anti-bias education also seeks to challenge and address biases, discrimination in the classroom, stereotypes, and more. Some key concepts of anti-bias education are identity, diversity, justice, and action. So how can one incorporate anti-bias education in the classroom? You can do this by avoiding sensitive topics such as identity and social justice, and you can refrain from actively teaching about systematic inequalities. You can also collaborate with colleagues and work with families and communities where you're working around to kind of get that education that you need. And you can discourage open conversations about personal experiences with bias, and I have with bias in bold because it's important in education to share each one of your personal experiences and learn about it. But if it has bias, there's really nothing to gain from that, so that's also important to include. You can also balance content with solutions and be mindful of your own bias and how what you say can come across as something different to somebody else, so it's just important to be mindful. And another thing to be mindful of is your students' questions, comments, and behaviors, and how to kind of redirect them if it's said in the classroom, and how to do that correctly. And those are my sources.
Yay, great. Wait, do you have to comment on anything? Is that part of the...
I don't think so.
I don't know.
That's okay. I'll just cut it so it just, if we have any moments of silence, it doesn't make it weird. Okay, who wants to go next?
Aren't we supposed to give feedback on each one?
That's what I thought. Oh. Okay, yeah. I liked that how you mentioned redirecting. I think in nursing, a lot of stuff that in order to prevent bias, you have to redirect the conversation. So I do think that it's applicable to a lot of the majors that we have. Yeah.
I liked how you talked about it specifically in the classroom and how to avoid anti-bias in the classroom.
Thanks.
That's what I was gonna say. I really appreciated the classroom part.
Okay.
Type shit. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Feel free to leave whenever you need to. Yeah, if we're
Okay,
holding you
thank
too
you.
long. So yeah. Okay. Who wants to go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
Before anyone goes, I'm gonna try and leave and come back again because I'm reading on closed captions right now, so
Okay.
I still for some reason can't hear anybody.
Pull up a chair. Pull up a chair. I like how this audio is recording and everything. Yeah. I'm honestly just gonna send it that. Honestly, if I could.
Okay, so I had formulating learning objectives. And then for what's a learning objective, it's a clear and specific statement that should describe what students are expected to learn or know by the end of the lesson. And it takes like larger state standards or national standards and goals, and it like makes them smaller into like smaller objectives for teachers. And it allows both students and teachers to have a clear understanding of each lesson and the goals for that lesson. And then for some characteristics of a learning objective, I used the like SMART acronym: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And for specific, it's just clearly defined and states what you want out of the student. It can be determined if the goal can be achieved. The goal is realistic and within the student's ability, and it's relevant to the grade level and curriculum. And then it specifies a time when the objective should be achieved. And then for the different approaches we talked about in class, there's the cognitive approach and then the behavioral approach. The cognitive approach is broad to specific, and it begins with topics you want students to know and understand, and it begins with the goals for students. And an example of that is the student will understand the nature and process of the water cycle. And then for the behavioral approach, this is specific to broad, and it begins with identification, a specific behavior or action with a specific outcome. And this should specify a certain behavior that can be observed. And then an example is learn to sing the ABCs. And then for specifically how to formulate a learning objective, I found these like 5 steps. So step 1, determine the object or subject area, and then going back to the water cycle example. And then step 2 is determining the mastery level, grade levels, like primary education, K through 5. Step 3, determining the approach. This would be the cognitive approach. Finishing the learning objective, the student will understand the nature and process of the water cycle by the end of the lesson. And then step 5 is to tweak and adjust. The students will understand the nature, process, and purpose of the water cycle by the end of the lesson. And then those are my sources.
Yeah.
It's cool that you provided like examples so you can make a connection to like the topic and like real life examples, so like it's a lot easier to understand.
I like how you used the SMART acronym and then you kind of explained it out. That was like a cool thing to like put in an acronym.
I like the format of your slides. It was pretty.
Thank you.
It's cute.
Okay. Who wants to go next?
I can go.
Okay.
Okay, so I did types of standardized testing. And hold on, I don't know why it's not going to the next one.
Wait, what?
She's fixing her slides.
Okay, I'll just do this.
So the first type of standardized testing is achievement tests. And achievement tests, the purpose of them is to evaluate how well a student has learned a topic for a course unit or academic year. They're usually teacher-made assessments and performance-based evaluations, and they're given at the end of a course unit or academic year. Second one is diagnostic tests, and the purpose of these are a pre-assessment that helps teachers identify a student's strengths and weaknesses. They can be quizzes, surveys, pretest, exit slips, etc. And when they're given, when teachers need to plan instruction and provide support when needed. And the second is third. Purpose is to evaluate student performance and how well students have mastered grade level skills and improved teaching and learning within the state. And the types differ by state, and when they're given also differs by state. And then these are my sources.
That one was pretty too.
Thank you.
I liked how you had like.
Yeah, I liked all your like graphics and images.
I liked how you had like the three. Was it like achievement? Was it state testing and
Diagnostic.
I like how you had like examples for each, and then
Thank
if
you.
it's different by state, because that's also important. Like they're not all the same. And then what else? I mean, I don't know if you've experienced state testing, but I have. Like, do you ever have like? I had from Texas. We had the STAR testing.
Yeah, we had that too.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't think it was the other one.
We also did, I'm from Pennsylvania, we did PSSAs. It was like in
I did that too.
elementary school.
So the public schools around me, I'm from PA, they had PSSAs, but I had Terra Novas growing up. It's like practically the same thing, but just I think they're called different.
It's honestly kind of crazy how, like, even though you're in the same state, there's different testing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. Do you want to
Sure. Okay. How do I do this?
You just share the screen. You
Like-
go to the Google.
Stupid question too. Does she like want the recording of this? Like,
Yeah.
Want to record this? Okay.
It's like a submission thing.
That's what I thought, but I've never worked with Google Meet before, so I don't know how to like even record it. That's what I was like.
This thing sucks. Okay. I'm really hoping it's showing the right things right now.
Can you see it?
Can y'all?
Yes.
Y'all can
Yeah,
see it.
yeah.
Okay, so it's so like as a you can't see them.
Okay.
You can see.
This is scary. But anyways, okay. So this is based on the reliability and like absence of bias within assessment. So like standardized testing. And then this is from the slides. I thought this was really convenient to put in here. So it's like for an assessment to be high quality, it needs to have good validity and reliability as well as absence from bias. So that's what it means by like reliability and absence from bias. So for reliability, it refers to the consistency of the measurement. So how that applies to an assessment is that an assessment provides information about students by using a specific measure of performance at one particular time. And some assessments are more reliable than others. So like sometimes a teacher would ask like, does my assessment consistently bring about the same results across multiple administrations to the same students? So that's why it kind of connects to like the classroom setting. And there's several things that make an assessment reliable. So assessments with more tasks tend to have a higher reliability. So like for example, a test with 50 items is going to be more reliable than a test with 5 items. So like if a student doesn't understand one of the items in the first test, and then the test that has like 5 items, that score is going to be influenced a lot more than the one test that has 50 items. And if they only miss one item, their total score wouldn't be influenced as much. And then another thing that makes an assessment more reliable is clear directions and tasks, because unclear directions can lead to students guessing and undermine accuracy of the results, as well as a clear scoring criteria. So here's like a graph that demonstrates reliability and validity. So each dot can represent like a student, and the center of the target is the goal that the teacher wants. So for the top left, that's the unreliable and invalid. So the measurements illustrate poor reliability because you can see that they're scattered, and it shows inconsistency, and poor validity because they're not quite towards the center of the target, and the center of the target does represent accuracy. And then there's reliable but invalid. So that's the bottom left. And you can see that it's reliable because the dots are consistent within one spot, but they're still not showing accuracy. And then the reliable and valid, which is at the bottom right, it illustrates both consistency and accuracy. All the dots are in the same spot at the center of the target. And then for absence of bias, so bias occurs in assessment when there are components in the assessment method or administration of the assessment that distort the performance of the student because of their personal characteristics such as gender, ethnicity, or social class. And it's very important that assessments are free of bias. And there's two different types of bias. There's offensive bias and penalization bias. Offensive bias are assessments that have negative stereotypes. So like an example would be, this was in the book, like in health class, which would include items where all doctors are men and all women are nurses. So it would affect that student because the women would be more likely to be offended, and it could potentially distract them from performing well on an assessment. Penalization bias, that occurs when items disadvantage one group because of differential background experiences. So like an item for math assessment that assumes knowledge of one particular sport will disadvantage groups that are not particular with that sport. So like if it includes like a football reference and some people don't really understand the sport of football, or like if they don't understand soccer, they're not really going to understand the question overall. And then here are my references. So there's the book, the slides, and then a link that kind of explains the diagram of the targets. And that's it.
I really liked your target diagram. I just found it like really interesting and like a good explanation of what you were talking about.
I liked your quote at the beginning.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing.
I liked how within like your diagram, like you had like the explanation on the side, and it was very like to the point, and you didn't have to like fish around and all the like. I thought all your stuff was very like detailed and like direct to the point.
Thank you. Your turn.
Oh, okay. I got voluntold. Okay, I don't even know where mine is.
Do you share? You shared yours.
I do have to go. But
Okay,
is that
yeah.
okay?
That's okay.
Okay, all right. Have a great Thanksgiving break, you
You
guys.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I was gonna put like an extra sign. Okay, wait, hold up. Oh, you can't do it for mine because
Yeah, look. Share the screen. Oh, for editing?
it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, are you sure? We
Yeah,
can just talk
it's-
about it. Let's talk about it.
I can't. That's why I'm here. Where's the present? Is it the present now button?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Share screen or share window?
I said screen because I didn't know how to do that specific window.
Okay. Share entire screen.
Okay. And then just go on your slide thing. Nope. Oh, don't.
I don't even. This?
Yeah, and then slideshow.
Okay, can you see this?
Can y'all see it?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought we were on mute.
Me too. I got scared for a second. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so my topic was standardized testing. It's kind of like Fiona's, but more kind of a generalized version of it. So it doesn't really go into specific types, but more of what it is and what's its purpose. Okay, so like I said, the purpose of standardized testing. So there are four purposes to standardized testing. There's to diagnose strengths and weaknesses, accountability, specific program selection, and to assist the teacher planning. Under to diagnose strengths and weaknesses, it's often used to determine student disability, learning, and comprehension. So if a student kind of has a language barrier, you would want to test them to see whether if they have a deficiency in that type. It could also be used to diagnose like ADHD, and what else can you use to diagnose it? Other learning disabilities. The second one is accountability. It holds teachers and instructors accountable for student learning. And this is kind of where teachers use standardized testing to see whether their learning style is benefiting the class. And it could also be used in a public perception from a national perspective, because in those parentheses I say public accountability affects public perception. So schools can actually use this to see whether their teachers are teaching the correct curriculum according to their standards. And like we said, or like we learned in this unit, state testing or state standards for education is kind of more specific rather than national standards. So it just depends on which state these educational standards are. The next one is specific program selection. This determines whether students are eligible for various educational programs, such as college, special education, or gifted programs. I know at my school we did kind of this gifted and talented program. I tried a couple of times, didn't get in. That's all right. And there's also the SAT, ACT, which could also be counted towards college, and the ASVAB if you're trying to join the military. That's also a standardized test. The last one is to assist teacher planning. It's used to help determine where areas of teaching are underperforming. Teachers can adapt their curriculum to help students in all areas of their subjects. Like accountability kind of goes hand in hand. It shows whether teachers are teaching the correct curriculum and whether they need to alter their lesson plans in order to help specific students. This could also be seen in differential learning, where teachers use different methods and combine them to see if that'll benefit their students and their overall academic success. Okay, and then now we go into the Common Core standards. So this is the National Educational Standard, which is a guideline. It's not state education, where state education is more specific and geared towards public education, but it's more kind of on a broader scale. So it's not something the states or specific public school districts have to follow, but more kind of a generalized, hey, like, students should be doing this, this, and this. It's what students should know and when they should know it for English, language arts, and math. And it's the academic expectations for children in order to achieve college and career readiness. There are three opinions mainly on this one. I read this, this came from the video in during class. So one of the opinions said that it was better than what states used in the past. It helps provide students with a deeper understanding of academic materials and prepares for higher education for employment in adulthood. So these people think that having a national guideline benefits overall understanding of where students should be on their academic progress. But there are also contrasting perspectives which say that many curriculum materials don't align with the Common Core, and there's skepticism of accuracy to academic achievement. Like most standardized testing, people don't really perceive that to be a validating test to determine whether you're academic proficient in that. And so that kind of perspective opposes why the supporting perspective. And then lastly, it's not a curriculum test or federal program. So individual schools can create their own curriculum based on the Common Core standards. This is kind of what I said at the beginning of this slide where it's like state standards are completely different from the national standards, and it's a guideline, so schools don't really have to follow it. I don't know. I just think it's kind of odd that we have two different systems that run different from each other. And that concludes my presentation, and those are my references. Cool.
I like that you used the video from class. I thought that was really helpful to bring it back to what we talked about.
Nice.
I like how also you didn't read like directly from the screen, like word for word. Like you kind of brought in examples and like just your like, I guess brain. You didn't really like you, it seemed like you knew a lot about the topic and you weren't just like reading straight from the slide.
I like that you brought in your own opinions throughout the slideshow.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Okay, on to the next.
I could go. I will only present actually, so I'll try to figure that out if you want to go.
I can go. Just see if I can get it to work. Share entire screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's not even on.
You guys.
Okay.
Okay. So I did Bloom taxonomy. So it's just a hierarchical ordering of the cognitive skills teachers and students both use in the classroom. Benjamin Bloom was the one to pioneer it in the 1950s. He also established the framework in categorizing educational goals. So there are 6 levels in Bloom's taxonomy. There are the 3 lower levels, or the more basic levels: remembering, understanding, and applying. And then the following 3 upper levels, or the higher order thinking skills, are analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So this is a pyramid. They did update it in the 1990s. So this is one of the older ones. I kind of just wanted to bring it in because they still have the same basic background, but this is the new updated pyramid. So they changed, so the verb, they updated the nouns to action-oriented verbs, and I really like that. I wanted to put that in my slide. So the levels description, I spelled that word wrong. It is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So remembering is just recalling the facts and basic concepts, and there are some verbs underneath it, like explaining, and then explaining ideas and concepts. So summarizing or comparing and contrasting. For applying, you use new information and using information in new situations, like change, transferring, showing, demonstrating. For analyzing, you're just making connections between ideas, so relating, problem solving, calculating. For evaluating, it's just justifying a decision, so planning, reframing, revising. And then creating, it's producing a new or original work, so it's just designing, rewriting, collaborating, or formulating. So these are examples in everyday life. I did 3 for each. 2 are, the first one's going to be more relating to younger kids, and then the other 2 are more what college kids and adults are going to see. So I'll read the middle one. Remembering is just recalling the major milestones in the development of modern psychology theories. For understanding, you could see comparing and contrasting the advantages and disadvantages of renewable and non-renewable energy sources. Applying is designing the basic experiment to test a hypothesis in the scientific field. For analyzing, it could just be evaluating the strengths and weaknesses of a different political system or theories. For evaluating, just comparing and contrasting different models and theories in a complex of specific problem or issue, and then creating, just be inventing a new product or service that would address a specific market need. So these are I just did a lot of examples because at the end of the day, like, the pyramid is just defining a way to put this into your everyday life and taking it step by step for how you put it in your everyday life, and starting from the bottom. It's just the pyramid was used to set goals and design for learning experiences for students to get to higher levels. Yeah, well, there's my works cited. I used one of the videos from class and then just the other two were just online that were good articles. Yeah.
I liked the everyday examples.
I like that you had the old Bloom's taxonomy and compared it to the updated one.
It was very well organized too.
Thank you.
I liked how you added like a lot of description to the specific levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and how like you can apply that to everyday life. Okay.
I can go.
This makes mine look so
Can you see my
boring.
screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did service learning and differentiating learning, I'm sorry, I put the same word in there twice. I meant to say service learning and differentiating instruction. So in this presentation, I'm going to go through service learning and differentiating instruction and how they can both be applied in the classroom. So first, how to implement differentiated learning. Teachers can implement differentiated learning in their classroom by evaluating each student's skill level and different types of learning styles. So that would look like conducting different types of activities and assessments to determine how each student learns and retains information the best. So that would include formal and informal assessments. In order for this to be effective, this method of learning, it's really important that teachers conduct a huge variety of skill-based assessments before creating lesson plans, so that way they know what to put for each student and how to maximize their learning in the classroom. So I have an example lesson for differentiated learning and for or differentiated instruction, and the other method as well, that I applied them both to kind of 5th, 6th grade, 7th grade level. So for differentiated instruction, I thought they could do an arts and crafts assignment. So you print out a cartoon-based template, hand it out to each student, and have them draw on their features. So if they have glasses, hearing aids, freckles, draw on any feature that they have, and then next to their face, they're going to write down what they think their strengths and weaknesses are. And then pair the students together and have them share what they wrote for themselves. And this can be kind of a scary thing, I feel like, to do for middle school students, because they're hitting puberty. They're known to not be as understanding, but I think that's why it's important to do these kind of assessments during this time. Differentiating instruction is the idea of creating individualized plans and schedules to create a beneficial learning environment for different types of learners in a classroom setting. And then service learning is active learning in your community in order to gain real-world experience, which can be applied in class concepts. So service learning looks like doing acts of service in your community to gain more knowledge. So that would be picking up trash in your area, planting flowers at their school district, at their nursing home, any stuff like that can give them real-world experience to gain complex thinking skills at a younger age and gain perspective on the world. So an example lesson of service learning, again, for 6th, 7th grade, that schedule a field trip for your students to plant their own tree or flower at your local park, nursing home, anywhere in your area. Put students in pairs beforehand so they can choose their plant that they want to plant, and they need to research on why it would be beneficial to their community. And then bring the students to your local area, have them plant the trees, and then on the ride back to school, have them pair up and answer questions about how the experience was for them. Who is impacted by implementing these methods? Implementing differentiated instruction and service learning is really important for fostering an inclusive learning environment for all students, specifically students with disabilities. It helps them to be incorporated into every single assignment, every single activity, so there's more inclusivity in the school and the classroom environment. And that's also helpful for neurotypical students as well, because they're learning complex thinking skills at a younger age by gaining perspective on the world by interacting with different cultures and backgrounds and abilities. These methods are important because they, as I said before, they kind of are, it's really helpful to bring all the students together so that way they can achieve the highest possible learning that they can in that classroom. So instead of deciding for a best option for the whole classroom, you're deciding for individual groups of students in your classroom. So rather than, it's not an IEP class, but it's for your own classroom, and you are creating methods that are going to be beneficial to all your students. And then these are my sources.
I really liked your different examples and like lesson plans based on like grade levels.
My slides were kind of out of order, so that might have been confusing. They weren't, I don't know why it presented like that.
I really liked how you used like slides where it set in the impact of the learning. A lot of people don't really, in slides, like don't really talk about like the implications of how it affects students and like how it affects their overall learning experience. So I liked how you put that in there.
I also like how like it didn't look really like there wasn't a bunch of information thrown at you. I liked how organized it was, and again, kind of like I said previously, it was just very you understood like what you were trying to get across.